and welcome to Sasquatch Talk. My name is Bradley Valentine. I'll be your host today. At the top right of your screen, you have Silly Goober, and at the bottom, you have Troy Guest, as you can see on your screens here.
Does it say Silly Goober?
It sure does.
Fantastic.
Have you guys seen that video during COVID when it was like a lawyer was at on a trial or something, and it had like a cat filter, and he's like, "I promise you, I'm not actually a cat." Like it was an old man who accidentally put a cat. That's funny. Anyways, this is episode 18. We're talking about the United Nations. Okay, I have an icebreaker, but I kind of want us to answer it in reverse. So here's the scenario. The three of us are the final deciding members of the United Nations. And at the end of this podcast, don't answer it yet, but at the end of the podcast, you have to make some decisions around the United Nations. The decisions are the Paris Agreement. Do we get rid of it? Do we kick any members out? That's 2. And 3, do we dismantle the United Nations? So don't answer that yet. Let's talk about those things. But do we get rid of the Paris Agreement? Do we kick any members out? And finally, do we dismantle it? And it will be majority rules. So in the end, if 2 of us vote one way and 1 of us votes the other, then the majority gets the vote. Make sense?
Yeah, you're talking about the one from 2015, right?
The Paris Agreement? Yeah, that's the climate change agreement. And we'll get into that in a second. That's a big thing because the United States pulled out of the Paris Agreement in January, actually. So I'll start there. Well, let's start with some introductions to the United Nations, because last week we talked about NATO. And NATO's, I guess I knew more about NATO. Troy and I were talking about this before the podcast. I think I knew more about NATO than I did the United Nations, which is weird because the more I learn about the United Nations, it's like a much bigger organization. Like there's 145 countries. NATO, we kind of talked about.
That's not even including all their little branch off groups that are technically something separate, like the WHO.
Right.
But are pseudo-controlled by the UN, but not really. And
it's funny because in NATO, it was kind of like Canada, the US, and a bunch of Europe kind of protecting itself.
Well, Northern Atlantic, right?
Right, yeah. Whereas this has China, Russia, it's got the commies, it's North Korea's in the UN. That's crazy. So NATO was formed in 1945, right after World War II. It was sort of what Wilson wanted to do, the League of Nations, which was World War I. He wanted to set up this foundation of like a world governing a factor to protect the world. So I guess let's start there. How effective can the United Nations be if countries within the United Nations are kind of sometimes like at war with each other? Like it's not like NATO, where if someone goes and attacks one country of NATO, all of NATO is supposed to stand together. Like these countries can battle each other. So I'll start with you, Dan. Like is there effectiveness in having United Nations if we can be at war with each other within that United Nations?
Well, I think the best way to describe it from all of the reading that I've done is like we're all stuck here on the planet with each other, right? So in a family, in the US anyways, you typically can't leave before you're of legal age to leave.
Sure.
So you're stuck with your brothers and sisters. It doesn't matter if one of them is a royal pain in the behind, right? And like every day you just want to strangle them. You're stuck with them.
Yeah.
Right? So the United Nations, like we're stuck with all the people that join it, whether they contribute money or not, because when you look at the percentages of who contributes funding to it, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Because not many, but through all of like the U.S. was a pretty big one.
Right.
Um, but most of their money comes through what I would call racketeering.
Okay.
Um, but I think that's why they fight though, because we're stuck with each other.
Yeah.
Like they don't see a certain way, and it's funny though that they tout on being humanitarian aid and peacekeeping missions, right? Everybody thinks, or at least they paint this picture of the UN and peacekeeping missions, but pretty much they just show up with like gear, and then they're like, "Oh, we can't do anything. We're here for a peace mission."
Yeah. Like, what are you here for then?
But meanwhile, people are fighting and shooting all around them,
Yeah.
and they're just hanging out on their
Yeah,
tanks.
here's a bottle of water.
Yeah, yeah, they show up with water and food that's really close to being on its last
Sure.
day.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's pretty wild. Or it gets stolen or sold to the highest bidder in the
Yeah.
faction. Like reading about the Sudan, that's a really easy one to get lost in, is all of that East African craziness that's gone on for years, and like the UN was going to step in and make it all better, and it's
Yeah.
just gotten horrendous over the years.
So, Troy, do you agree with Dan that the effectiveness of the United
Oh yeah.
Nations is pretty weak?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean those peacekeeping missions that Dan was talking about, they've been kind of a joke forever. Everywhere they showed up, they were just ineffective. And that's kind of the highlight of the UN's of ineffectiveness, but
Yeah.
their ineffectiveness percolates throughout the rest of the system.
Yeah.
The League of Nations, which is what the predecessor to the UN was, it largely collapsed because the countries stopped funding it. They
Right.
stopped participating in it. You look at in the last, I think it was in January, the UN, the Secretary General said that a good over half of the countries haven't paid their dues for 25-26. So you kind of seen a repeat thing of countries pulling back their contributions, and that would happen during times of ineffectiveness. Why give your resources to something
Sure.
so ineffective?
Yeah. And speaking of ineffectiveness, I don't want to jump the gun, but there's so much to talk about when it comes to the United Nations. The U.S. pays about 25% of the budget of the United Nations. So think about that, right? Now, last week I said, what does the U.S. get out of NATO, right? Like if we're spending all this money, what do we get out of it? Well, we actually do get something out of it this time. And a lot of it is essentially leverage because of how much money we have invested. And two is we have veto power, which there's 5 permanent members. There's the US, Russia, UK, China, and France. So if there's a resolution, the US or any one of those 5 members can vote no, and they can stop. Like a 14 yay votes, a 1 no vote. The US can stop that. So they're pretty strong, but they're just as strong as the UK, Russia, France, and China, because they're all, veto power members. They're called the P5, permanent members.
Mm-hmm.
So
You know what's
go ahead. No, go ahead, Troy.
what's interesting about the China component on that?
What?
When the UN Security Council was first established, China that was selected was the Republic of China, which is now Taiwan. It was
Yeah.
71 where the Communist Party took over. So the China that took over that was a part of the UN Council, the Security Council, is not the same China that's on the council today.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point, Troy. Good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. So,
Yes,
sorry,
go
continue
ahead.
your thought, Bradley.
Well, I guess what I was gonna say was, like we have a little bit of an advantage to being in the United Nations, and part of it is that we get a big say. Now, here's where this advantage could fall through. So, Dan, you were talking about the 2015 Paris Agreement. Okay, I don't know if you guys or anyone listening knows much about the Paris Agreement, but essentially it's a climate change prevention agreement. And we've kind of talked about this when it comes to like the clock, the doomsday clock. But the Paris Agreement, the Paris Agreement, essentially what everyone came together and said was every 5 years, your country has to come with a plan on how you're going to stop climate change or reduce, I think it was like reduce the temperature of the earth by 1.5 degrees Celsius. I mean, to think that we could just make a plan to reduce the temperature.
Yeah, but no one nation, it doesn't matter if you make a plan or not. Like, no one nation can do it.
Yes.
Because there's the whole rest of the world out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with you. It's ridiculous. But the idea is we all get together and fix this issue. I just want, like, the mind-blowing thought that we can, like, be like, I'm going to drop the outdoor temperature. Like who are we as humans to think we can change the temperature?
Yeah. Well, then they ignore, like, when you look at volcanoes that erupt, like the one in Iceland, right? It put out so much CO2, which is what they say is the most greenhouse gas.
Yeah.
There hasn't, if you take from the first internal combustion engine that was ever run to today, that volcano did like 55 times more than every single internal combustion engine ever conceived.
Yeah.
Put together. And when you think
about
that, think about ocean liners, all the little lawnmowers, all the millions of motorcycles in China, Taiwan. Like, that is a large amount of engines burning fossil fuel, and one volcano eclipsed all of that by 55 times.
That was the 2010 eruption, right, in Iceland?
Yes.
That the one you're talking about?
Yeah. And that's not the only volcano spewing stuff. So now we're gonna change everything that we do that accounts for like 3%. Do I think that dumping toxic stuff into water that we drink is good? I don't think that at all. Do I think that you can't carpool and say, hey, we're both going to the same place, let's ride together? It's good for both our pocketbooks, right? And we get to hang out and talk. I think that's fine too. But what I'm saying is, it is a moral high ground position when they use things like, we're going to reduce the temperature of the earth by 1.5 Celsius, right?
Yeah.
That's like saying, I use paper straws and they don't hurt the environment.
Yeah.
Oregon tried that. They tried that a little while ago, right after COVID.
Yeah. But the production of paper straws, when you look into it,
it's worse. Fast forward to today, that experiment is over, and I think it lasted it was less than a year. So that paper straw thing is not effective. It does not work. On your
the
note,
glue is bad. Like,
it alters the taste of the drink, regardless of what you drink. Yeah, but that's not what people that are using those are concerned with. No, you're right. When I drink, want a certain drink, and if a straw is altering it, I'm changing something up because I don't like it. You know, whether it's the drink or the straw. But on your note, though, you're talking about the CO2, it being a greenhouse gas. What they don't talk about so much is the fact that water vapor is also a greenhouse gas. It is in the atmosphere. It makes up the majority of the atmosphere, and it does a better job at trapping heat than carbon does, right? Yeah. So that's why when you go to humid areas and the sun goes down, all that water in the air traps the heat, whereas in
areas, it gets warmer when I leave work than at 10 o'clock at night.
And then in drier areas, that sun goes down and you could feel it just drop in temperature. It's because there's less moisture in the air. it traps heat. That whole CO2 is greenhouse
Yeah,
gas.
but
It's
that's assuming that it's not a big ploy to just control the population because there's
that's
more
exactly what
people
it
than there
is.
is people in control, right?
Yeah.
And if the people that aren't in control could get together and put their differences aside, that's what makes politicians really worry, is
Okay,
when a large amount of people get on the same side.
I would
Go
agree with
Kings.
you that there is a control aspect, but the ineffectiveness of the Paris agreements is okay. Let me explain. So the goals are to pursue the limit of 1.5 degrees Celsius, like to make sure the temperature doesn't go above 1.5 degrees Celsius, to reach global peaking of greenhouse gas emissions as soon as possible, and to achieve net zero between emissions and removals in the second half of the century. So let me go off on a quick tangent about net zero. When you see a company announces that they are net zero with like greenhouse gases or whatever, all they mean is they are donating money to someone who's like planting trees or something. That's all it means because they're not net zero. If anyone, Apple's probably the closest to net zero because their whole facility uses recycled aluminum. Like it's a self-sustaining economy. Apple actually knows what they're doing with this, but 99% of these countries who say they're net zero are just essentially giving money to someone to offset the cost of their carbon footprint. And
That's that carbon
So
credit.
when I
They're
say
buying carbon
control,
credits.
well, okay,
when
before
I
you get
say
to that,
control,
Dan,
I mean, yeah.
because all it is saying like every 5 years we need to bring a new plan on how we're going to fix this issue. And essentially these
Hmm.
people are making plans. Like what is it like the president like, okay, here's what I'm going to do to drop the temperature by 1.5 degrees. It's just a bunch of
No, they get some scientists together and they say, give me a freaking PowerPoint
yeah,
that I can send to this. So they
that's
get 10 of their buddies and they're like, how can we show that this is going to work? But the real thing is, here's how they control people.
mhm.
Okay. Climate change movements in governments affect your ability to freely travel. Okay. And when you can't freely travel, you can't organize and you can't get people together. When you look at the funding agreements on the Paris Agreement, right? At first, they wanted to raise 100 billion annually in climate change finance.
Mhm.
Okay? Their new goal by 2035, they want to raise 300 billion a year.
Okay.
And it largely comes from grants,
Mhm.
which is basically an interest-free government
Yeah.
loans,
Yeah.
and private investments, which is like morality taxing people, right? Like
Yeah.
you have a moral obligation to,
Yeah.
you know, not dump oil in your backyard or what, like whatever it is, right? But you can literally go drill the ground and get oil out of it.
Yeah.
Um, it's all a mind game to control people. And I know that sounds tinfoil hatty and whatever,
I,
but
yeah. The US pulled out is the thing. So we're not part of it
Mm-hmm.
anymore as of
Mm-mm.
2 months ago, essentially 2 months ago, January
yeah,
27th.
this was written before that.
Yeah. So,
So,
but you're right. I mean, like it was 2015, so that was right at the end of President Obama, and then President Trump came. He didn't pull out then, and we had President Biden, and then he finally pulled out. And it was ineffective. It was expensive. So today we're not like we're not enforced on any of these things. We don't have to have the stupid policies or whatever. It's ineffective. It doesn't do anything. You can't just make an agreement and say like, "Hey, we're going to drop the temperature of the earth." Like you said, Troy, like water vapor, humidity has a big impact on temperature. Like what are we going to suck that out of the sky, you know?
and
Right. Yeah.
the other thing is the Paris Agreement is only an update from the Paris deal. which was restated in 2009.
Yeah.
This is from the BBC, right?
Yeah.
Where they were going to provide 100 billion to help developing nations deal with the effects of climate change and build greener economies, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you're trying to, here's what I here's what I struggle with this whole thing, with the UN, with the Paris deal, with I'm not against helping people that can't help themselves. But when you understand fundamentally they don't like each other because half of them are Muslim
Yeah.
and half of them are not.
Yeah.
And that's probably a gross miscalculation of who is and who isn't.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, the problems that they're having is they can't agree on sharing the land and not killing each other over it. So that's what the problem is, right? So then the UN's like, hey, we're going to show up and promote peace. So they show up and they have meetings that usually erupt in gunfire. And like, so then everybody else is like, well, get rid of all the guns. Like, well, then they'll just bludgeon each other with rocks. We've proven it throughout history. If you don't have a gun, we'll use a rock. And if
Yeah.
we don't have a rock, we'll sharpen a stick.
Yeah.
You know, that's just how people are. And until we can understand that we're different and sometimes it's okay to be different and we don't have to kill each other for being different until someone's inflicting harm on you or, like someone else, that's what the whole thing is around. But they're trying to like when you take the Sudan, for example, they don't want to be anybody else. They want to be them, but they want them to be able to trade fairly with
Yeah.
everybody else. But there's people they don't want to trade with. And there's people that don't want to trade with them because they don't like them because they're, from over there. And so it's like it's not even dressing the wound. It's just
Sure.
shoving a Band-Aid into the wound.
Well, okay, let's get into that idea of like getting along, because countries within the United Nations have gone to war with each other. I mean, just look at the
Yeah,
United States. Iraq,
right.
Afghanistan, the US, we're all in the United
United
Nations,
Nations,
and
yeah.
we've been at war with each other, right?
Yeah.
Israel's in the United Nations. I mean, China, North Korea, South Korea, we're all in there. So Troy, I'll
Yeah.
ask you this. We're at war with each other within the United Nations, and Daniel kind of put it like sometimes you're at war with your family, you have to get along one way or another. Is there any members that you would kick out because of war? Like, let's say we're in charge, we're not representing any country necessarily. Would you kick members out? Would you keep everyone? Would you add anyone? Because Ukraine wants to be part of the United Nations, right? And that was a big part of the deals.
NATO.
Or NATO, was it
NATO.
NATO?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they want to be a part of, because they are a part of the UN. They just wanted to be a part of NATO.
Okay, gotcha. Would
Yeah.
would you say like, hey, let's add as many people as possible? Would you kick anyone out? Like, does it matter? So I'll leave that to you,
I,
Troy.
it's interesting. Have any of you guys ever lived in an HOA neighborhood
I live in
or
one
heard
right
No,
now.
stories about?
and I would
You do?
not.
Okay. Yeah.
And I
So
would not.
so that's the two of you. One says yes, one says no, right there. But the United Nations reminds me of a global HOA, basically. You're a part of an organization and you have to pay your dues to get the benefits of it. And then the HOA or the UN is going to do something that you don't agree with, you don't like. It goes
Yeah.
against your interests, and if you're a homeowner, you can't just move, but in America you can. You can pack up and move to a different house,
Yeah.
on the other side of town, or whatever. As to answer your question, though, I honestly I don't know if I want that responsibility. Like, all right, you're a bad boy, you're kicked out. You've been good the last year. You come back in. I don't know if I would have any interest in that.
I First of all, I I don't think it's as bad. living in an HOA as people think. Like I live in
Yeah.
one, and I don't even
Ours isn't that bad
I
either.
don't. The only thing I
But
notice
here,
is that there aren't like houses with like cars on the lawn down my street because they would get fined. Like it's not
Yeah.
bad. And people like I'm like a free speech, let me do what I want kind of guy, but I've never noticed it once. Other than
yeah, I
they
keep
water the lawns in the parks and it looks nice. I've never once noticed it.
So I didn't live in an HOA in Klamath, and I kept my trash and my business stuff in my backyard,
Yeah, that's
right?
you.
So,
Your neighbor necessarily maybe
right,
didn't.
I understand the premise of an HOA, and you
Yeah.
all want to make sure that each other isn't breaking the rules, but there's definitely times where people get written up in these HOAs because some sort of life thing has happened and they needed to do something and now they can't do it. And you can't sell your house in 5 minutes,
Yeah.
No.
and like, so then now you're limited as to what you can do to help. And so that's my issue. If like three cars break down and I want to take a week of leave and help somebody with three cars, if I lived in an HOA, I can't do that. I have to figure out how to do it a different way, or I've got to go to all three of their houses, and then maybe they live in HOAs, and we can't work on them there either. You
I
know,
will say,
like,
Dan, our HOA does allow some homeowners to do that as long as it's in the backyard. So depending on each HOA is a little different, Like
Yeah.
I got my FFL at the house, like most other HOAs wouldn't really
It's
tolerate that.
it's funny because Carrie and I were driving through this neighborhood, and it's like a neighborhood a few miles from our house, and it was really nice. I'm like, man, we could live here. It's a little cheaper. And then it was like nice house, nice house. Then like torn down house that looks like it's from a movie, and like there's there's like cardboard over the windows, and like the grass is overgrown. And we're like, okay, maybe that's why we live in an HOA. Do you know how much it would suck to live next to that house and it brings down your property value? Anyways, we're talking about HOAs. That you brought that up, Troy. That's your fault.
I know.
that's your fault.
Yeah.
um, Back to the United Nations, the HOA of the Earth.
The world, yeah.
Dan, I'll go back to you and thinking about the United Nations when it comes to other countries at war with each other. I don't know, maybe it's a me thing. Is it something that I'm like, yeah, I get over it, but like if we're in this thing where we have these agreements, and maybe we'll use Israel and Palestine. So, a couple years ago, essentially the United Nations wanted to vote on like pausing the war in Israel and Palestine for humanitarian effects, essentially to get them like humanitarian aid. And the U.S. vetoed it. Essentially, the U.S. said Israel can keep fighting their own war. How effective when there are Gaza ceasefire resolutions and we have a country like the US who's backing Israel, how effective can we be if we're still at war with each other, if we're voting over each other? Is this still an effective organization, Dan?
I think effective at what? When you look at the United Nations mission, right? It's not just peacekeeping,
Sure.
right? They're touting like uh helping third world nations get going, and like they're it's like it's like when you do anything, think you're gonna do a project on your house, and you open up the whatever to change. Let's say you're gonna change the cover on the light on the outlet, and you open up, you find out there's a burnt wire inside. Oh, now we got to change the outlet. So you go to change the outlet, and you
Yeah.
find out the wire's burnt out. So you got to change and this cascade effect happens, right? And then they lose sight. What was the original thing we were going to do? Oh yeah, we were going to change the outlet cover. And then they just get, 30,000 times removed down the line from what they were going to start with. People, when we think of the world as a whole, right? I don't want to wake up every morning and have to fist fight my neighbor to get to my car to go to work,
Yeah.
right? Nobody wants to do that. But there's places in this world where they don't get much sleep because they're constantly fighting all the time. So peace would be good, but until we understand where they're fighting from or what they're fighting about, it's like when you walk into a room and somebody has slapped the other one and you walk in just as they're slapping them back, and you're like, hey, why are you attacking him? You know, like they slapped me first. And like, yeah, sure, sure. Tell it to the judge.
Yeah.
You know, they're trying to regulate something that has been ingrained in centuries of traditions passed down of not liking each other. And it's really hard to change that. And so effectiveness, you can say we're effective. If you look at all the UN websites, like pro-UN websites and their own websites, man, you would think there's not a war happening on the planet.
Sure.
You know? They've saved 123 million babies and, this and that. Like they're out there saving the world on the regular. But then when you read through Reddit forums and you read through anywhere else where you're allowed to say things that are against the status quo or what people aren't like, hi, I used to be an alcoholic, but now I'm trying really hard to make it to work every day. That's not how people introduce themselves. They don't start with the deepest, darkest corners of their lives.
Yeah.
They go, hey, I'm here and I gave somebody a ride today. Like you try to put your best foot forward, right? And you're not trying to dump your garbage on everybody every time you meet them. And I think there's a place for an organization like that, right? Because people are fighting all the time. Effectivity, probably wildly lower than they would like to admit. Necessary, probably.
Yeah.
But how that looks, it's going to look different from every region, because when you take Americans and put them in the Sudan and try to make them help in a region that they don't comprehend why they're mad, the end result is not going to be good for either side. It's more like, since you two can't be happy, we'll make sure neither of you is happy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, like that American and Sudan issue makes me think like, if we're coming together as the world, blah, 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 to have peace or take care of things or help, whatever, right? Okay, that sounds all good. But at what point as an American do I or do you get to have to decide, like, I don't want to have anything to do with the Sudan right now because, like, I got $39 trillion in debt, in the United States. I have our world to worry about, right? Like now we're at war with Iran, with Israel, and like things, like gas is over $4 again. Like all of a sudden the gas prices during Joe Biden's term are happening during Donald Trump's term. I'm like, okay, I'm thinking,
what happened to drill baby drill and make better gas prices, right?
I know, right? So my thoughts are like, the United, and Troy, let me know what you think about this, but the United Nations almost takes away the individual rights of people within the countries of the United Nations, because it's not just your elected politicians making decisions for you. It's your elected politicians sending people to this group who aren't elected by us, making decisions for everyone. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, free America.
No, that's a very accurate.
That's basically what's happening.
It dilutes the effectivity, right?
Yeah, right. And so now all of a sudden,
it does.
Go ahead, Troy.
It does provide a platform for all of those countries to come together and talk about things, though, collectively as a whole.
Right.
Which is
but talking isn't good unless there's action, right? Then it just costs them money to go. It basically becomes a gripe session. Everybody complains about their country.
And that's what the UN General Assemblies are. If you ever see a UN General Assembly voted on such and such issue, General Assemblies are exactly that, Dan. They're not legally binding. So it's a country complaining about whatever issue. Like, for example, in January, just a couple months ago, they had a UN General Assembly to uh, against slavery and the human rights adjustments, and to enact reparations for all of the countries involved. And it was pushed forward by a bunch of the African nations. 3 countries denied it: the U.S., Israel, and Argentina. But it was because it was a General Assembly, it was non-binding. So yes, everyone showed up. They got to complain about their issues, complain about whatever issue that they wanted to, but there was no course of action. There was nothing. There was no action, like you were saying, Dan. And even if a country agrees with it, they still don't have to do anything.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's even the thing. Like, okay, I don't know, Troy, were you saying that the reparations would go to countries that still have slavery, or like, what was it? Do you know?
What the General Assembly was saying was that the countries that have taken artifacts and articles of culture and even treasure will have to be returned to the countries that had people that were enslaved from those countries. So basically, a bunch of European countries
are they going to
returning
make
their
Germany?
artifacts back
Are they going to make Germany give back all the gold and paintings and everything from?
basically what they were asking to do. Yeah.
Yeah,
all
that
those
ain't
European
happening.
countries giving back to Africa. Yeah.
England's going to give away its entire crown jewels set,
right?
Everything.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It just doesn't.
Okay.
It doesn't.
Yeah. I mean this is.
So on that.
Go ahead, Troy.
On that same General Assembly, all of those European countries abstained from it. So they didn't vote yes or no. All the African countries voted yes, and then the U.S., Israel, and Argentina voted no.
This is what's ridiculous. Is like, what are you talking about? Like, what say do I have in whether or not we're gonna send like some precious like? Shut up. Like that's my point, is like,
yeah,
we
seriously.
have no
Well, the
say.
other thing is this: why, like the World Health Organization. Here's the deal: like corporations that pollute giant bodies of water that provide drinking water to places and providing clean drinking water to people,
Sure.
Those should be shut down, but that's not the norm of what's happening out there. Those are, maybe 100 cases compared to 100 million other things going on.
Well, even with that, like, individual countries do a better job at controlling these things than the world collectively does. Like the U.S.
Well, when we think about it like that, Haiti likes to, like, aid was sent to Haiti from not NATO organizations and not government organizations. Like, entire peoples of, like, the United States sent aid to Haiti after the earthquake, right?
Right.
And the Haitian government held the aid hostage until the U.S. paid money to Haiti.
Like, sounds like Hamas.
They held aid from a non-government agency until a government agency gave them money, so they would release it to their people.
I guess what I'm saying is,
but the UN didn't even step in. All the UN does is make sure that Dominicans don't make it into Haiti, Dominicans don't make it into Haiti, or Haitians don't make it into the Dominican.
Right. It's almost like it's ineffective.
Yeah. What a concept.
That's the thing, is like the United States should have the choice, first of all, to send aid and money to Haiti. And when that happened in Haiti, like, a lot of churches went there voluntarily, not through government spending, right? A lot of individual organizations went there, not through the government.
And the individual people paid to go there to help.
Yes. People we know, like our family members, right? They went there, they helped. And the government getting involved just includes like a hostage situation, right? And when you do that at a larger level, it just becomes less and less effective. And that's where I'm like, first of all, we could probably have a whole podcast on if we should be spending money or sending money to any country when we're $39 trillion in debt. But I won't get us off on that tangent. But let's get to the final idea of like, okay, Haiti's in the United Nations, right? So maybe we should help them from the United Nations. But like you said, Dan, this was just individual countries, right? Not necessarily the organizations, but they held us hostage. So we have all these countries like Iran. We're at war with Iran. They're in there. Like Israel's in there. All these people are together fighting. And I want to know,
Yeah.
like, does it matter to you who's in the United Nations? And Dan, you can go, and then Troy.
I'll say it at this, like when you look at it and you write it all down, right? If you made a pros and cons list,
Yeah.
right? It's like this, for every ounce of effort, there's a pound of another problem.
Sure.
So like there's not enough, and in this case, the cure is worse than the thing that they're trying to fix, right?
Yeah.
So, the problem is when you look at the money that's flowing through the United Nations, the throughput of money through it, it could never be canceled because they tout economic development as one of their things. And every time we've looked into a thing that economic development is something that they tout, like NATO, for instance, right? It's really just fancy speak for legalized money laundering.
And here's the thing, even if it wasn't, it's super ineffective. It's like if I'm like, I'm gonna help some small guy in his garage like make his own business where he makes, I don't know, car parts, right? And I spend $100 million and he still works in his garage and he only makes $1,000 a month, like that. It's just super ineffective and super expensive.
It's a waste of money.
Yeah. Okay, we're winding down. We're running out of time. Troy, go ahead.
So you're talking about when two members are at war. Well, that was what the Cold War was, and they were permanent UN Security Council members. That was the U.S. and the Soviet Union. So that has been a problem the UN has had basically since the very inception. I mean, the Korean War was authorized by the UN. Right. Led by the U.S. That was to stop the spread of communism.
Right.
So, and during the time of the Soviet Union, they vetoed that authorization, but was overturned, leading to the Korean War. But that was within the first decade of the UN's creation.
Sure, yeah.
So that's always been an issue.
It is an issue. In Korea, both North and South Korea joined in 1991 on the same day. September 17th, interestingly enough. Okay, here, let's get back to our icebreaker. Let's start with number one. I want to vote yes or no. Not just does the U.S. pull out, but do we cancel the Paris Agreement of the United Nations? What's your vote, Troy?
So specifically the Paris Agreement?
Yes.
I've thought that was a complete waste of everything involved, including the ink and pen and on paper.
Yeah.
So I would pull out, get rid of that, eliminate all contributions to it, just not be associated with it at all.
Dan, what's your vote?
Eliminate it.
Eliminate it.
Yeah.
Eliminate it.
All right, unanimously, we eliminate the Paris Agreement. It's gone. No one talks about it anymore. Okay, now my question is, do we allow certain countries to be removed from the United Nations? Troy, I'll ask you first. Do we allow it to happen?
Yeah, everyone that disagrees with America.
So America
say that again? I missed
so America can have ultimate control of the whole organization.
So
I don't.
What do you think?
No, I don't think we need that.
You don't think so?
Yeah, let's go to war.
Okay.
Yeah.
I initially I thought no or yes, like we should be able to kick people out, but I think it's too ineffective. It doesn't matter, so I'm going to vote no. So that resolution has been turned down. The final resolution: should we dismantle the United Nations. This is the button that I talked about last time. You press
This
this
is the
button.
big red nuclear button.
Yup, you press the button and the United Nations is no more. Troy, do you push the button?
Yeah.
Dan.
Rebuild.
You said rebuild it, Troy. That's not pushing the button.
No, instead of reforming it, like which has been the recent push, you completely destroy and build from scratch.
But if you destroy it, you may or may not actually rebuild it. Sometimes when you break something down, you move on to different priorities. So are you willing to risk that?
Worse? Is that worse?
So
I mean, yeah, I would.
Okay.
No, I say you approach it with an ultimatum. Here's mine, right? Looking at the biggest contributors, we contribute more than double the next country to percentage of it, right? Here's what I say. You can only contribute, we'll assign a dollar amount to it at a different time, but for the amount of volunteers that you have from your country actively working in it. That's how you get, so for your people that are working in it,
yeah,
that's how you get contributions to it. So it's based on the size of your nation, and how many people you have working there.
So you essentially have a counter resolution to my push the button, is
Yes.
what you're saying. Well, here's the problem, Dan. It's still majority rule.
Yeah.
So if I push the button, your counter resolution goes away.
Yeah, that's fine. And that's how the UN works, right?
Yeah.
And that to
ideally,
answer your question, why people fight in the UN, that's why people fight in the UN.
Yeah.
Because two out of the three people push the button, and the third person goes, I have bombs and I'm gonna use them now.
Yes.
and then they start blowing crap up. And then you're like, whoa, what are you blowing me up for, bro? We voted. You lost. And they're like, yeah, I lost, but now you lost more. So then you bomb them back. And then Troy's like, whoa, Dan, Bradley, why are you bombing each other? And then he parks his 3 trucks in our front doors so that we can't get out to bomb each other.
So
and
Japan,
that's how it all starts.
Japan did that very thing in the early 1930s when they left the League of Nations. The League of Nations that had that vote telling them to pull out of Manchuria, China, they said no, and instead they withdrew from the application or from the League of Nations and just started bombing and invading and fighting all of China, basically.
They're like, forget you guys. We have war to fight.
We don't need you.
Yeah. We don't need you to tell us I can't bully them.
Yeah.
I will say this.
What's your decision?
This morning, I was thinking about this, and for me, NATO is ridiculous. I push that button every day, all day long. United Nations, the U.S. has some sort of control. But when I think about a person, not a politician, not a member of NATO, but a person in a country who has to pay, usually in taxes, sometimes in freedom, for the decisions made by a world government, and you have really no choice. Like, sure, you can elect an official who can help make a decision. No. I don't care what happens. Like, I think I've convinced myself I'm pushing the button. Boom! All right, that's two out of 3. We've gotten rid of NATO and the United Nations in a span of 8 days.
Hey, you know what would be interesting? What if we, real quick, you could probably beat me to it. What's total contributions from USA to UN and United Nations, NATO and UN combined?
I know that NATO or United Nations is around 3 billion. 820 million. It's not as much as we think.
18 billion annually. For the UN.
Okay.
According to AI.
Okay.
So 18 billion, that's not a drop in the bucket against the trillion, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, it's a lot, but it's not, you know? So
well, that's how we get to the trillion mark, is by saying 18 billion's not a lot. And here's what it says, providing roughly, and here's what's hilarious about this, 13 to 18 billion annually in recent years, right? 22% of the regular budget, and 25% of the peacekeeping budget.
Yeah.
So you would have to add those two together to
Right.
figure out the total contribution. So probably more to the realm of, I'm guessing more in the realm of 30 billion.
Sure. It's a lot of money, and you know what? It doesn't matter.
And that's not
gone.
that's not including paying the people of the UN either. That doesn't include UN salary.
Troy, I'm going to ask you this. A year from now, the three of us have dismantled NATO and the United Nations. A year from now, what does the world look like? What does the US look like? Is it better? Is it worse?
I think it's better.
Yeah.
I think it could be better. Yeah. That way, instead of having to go through a UN and a global government basically to negotiate things, you just go directly to the source.
Yeah.
One-on-one, negotiation.
Yeah.
I think ultimately it would be better. Some other countries might lose, but for the United States, I think it'd be better.
Sure. That's a good point, Dan, is some countries need it, Like we talked about, what was it, Iceland, who doesn't have their own military, but they're held up by essentially the US and NATO. Yeah, maybe it sucks for them, but like like you said, Dan, how many billions of dollars does it start to count where we actually do something in our own favor? Like we do it for ourselves. All right, Dan, final thoughts, because we're out of time. What do you got? Give us 30 seconds. Final thoughts.
I read through Reddit comments of, UN workers.
Yeah.
And it is plagued by the same thing every other political organization is plagued by.
Sure.
Ineffectiveness, people in positions that don't know their jobs and lean on interns not getting proper acknowledgement and or compensation for their efforts, and then whole programs being started only to be canceled and no answer for where that funding goes. Right? Along with like the cars that they purchased for the UN, instead of having fleet maintenance, they just sell them at a reduced rate to interns. So like there's waste at every level.
Of course.
There's bureaucratic, just gross negligence.
Yeah.
And so I would say probably half of everyone's contribution is wasted.
Well, I guess it's a good thing we blew it up. That's all the time we have.
Yeah, but we didn't, and it's probably going to double next year. So
feed the beast, make it bigger.
Cue the music. That's all we have. This is Sasquatch Talk. We are the owners of Sasquatch Gun Oil. Great stuff. Troy's got some right here. What gun were you working on today, Troy?
Oh, I just have my frame.
Oh, nice. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, that's what we got. Go to SasquatchGunOil.com or SasquatchGunOil.org to get yours. Adios. Bye.